Healing begins the moment you choose yourself. Welcome to Rise Up and Heal. I'm Annie, your host. In today's episode of Rise Up and Heal, I sit down with the beautiful Audra. Audra is the founder of Mama Audra, who helps mums unravel the web of old beliefs after leaving the LDS Church to discover their own identity as a woman and a mum. With over 15 years experience in international education and coaching, Audra discovered her passion in supporting mums grappling with grief, mum guilt, and identity loss after a faith crisis. Audra was raised in the church and moved overseas with her family to work in international schools. When she finally made the life-altering decision to leave the church, she found herself sinking in uncertainty, feeling lonelier than she'd ever felt before, and constantly felt like she was failing her children. Through years of self-discovery and coaching, Audra has walked the path to uncovering beliefs that resonate, building relationships with her children based on love and trust, and navigating the loneliness that comes from starting all over again. Audra now focuses her work on the unique challenges that ex-Mormon mums are navigating and helps them to feel confident in who they are, blaze their own path, and on their terms. And in saying that, Audra has also graciously gifted all listeners a free masterclass on 5 shifts every Mormon mum needs to make. Audra, thank you so much for being on Rise Up and Heal today. I so appreciate you being with us.
Oh, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you. Now, Audra, can you please share your story?
Yeah, so I was uh born and raised in a very strict Mormon household. So there's a lot of names for Mormons. The sort of the more common one is Mormon or LDS, or the formal name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just in case people are confused, those are all one and the same. So I might use those terms interchangeably. Um, and the caveat to my story is that my story is not meant to convince other people to leave, or to convince them, of the errors of the church or anything like that. This is just my personal lived experience of being able to say this doesn't align with me, and then how I can move forward from there. Um, so the Mormon church is a very high demand religion. Some people refer to it as a cult, and it definitely has cult-like tendencies. It's very prescribed in the way that you do everything. You're
Okay.
told how to live, what to eat, what to drink, what to do on Sundays. You're told your role in life. So you're really given an identity when you grow up in the church from the moment you're born. Who you are and your purpose in life is given to you. And, looking back, there, even as a child, there were so many things that made me go, that doesn't feel right. I don't know if I agree with that. And I would have that visceral reaction of, like, my body would tighten up and it just felt, uncomfortable in my skin. But I was always told that if I doubted, it was because I didn't have enough faith, and
Okay.
that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and I didn't need to understand his ways. I just needed to accept it and make my will the Lord's will. So I buried all of those doubts for years. I buried them and then lived the prescribed life. I went to BYU, which was the Mormon University in Utah, and was amongst the monoculture of the church. You're completely surrounded by it. And my life expectation, my divine role as a woman was to get married and have children.
Yeah.
And so that was what I did. I got married very young. I was only 20 years old
Oh,
when
wow.
I got married.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone around me was doing that. Right. So I say now I didn't really have a choice. And that's because if I would have chosen a different path, it would have been heavily judged and it would have affected my eternal salvation according to the church, right? And I wouldn't be following the righteous path that God had for me because you're really taught at a young age that there's what's called the plan of salvation, and you have to follow this plan of salvation in order to receive your award in heaven. So there's a lot of pressure to just follow the prescribed life and be exactly who they tell you to be. And then, fast forward a few years, I've got three kids and I'm living in Boise, Idaho in the United States. And I'm a stay-at-home mom because I was told I shouldn't work, that was my husband's role. And so I shouldn't take away his role, that was for him and not for me. And I was really depressed and really anxious, and I was having panic attacks all the time. And I
Wow.
couldn't I couldn't figure out why because I was doing
Yeah.
everything the church told me I should do that was supposed to bring happiness, that was supposed to make me happy. I was reading my scriptures, I was a stay-at-home mom, I was raising kids, I was in the divine role, I was going to church, I was doing all those righteous things, that checklist. I was checking all the boxes. But the panic attacks became quite debilitating. And hindsight, that was my body screaming at me that I was in a life that was not aligned with who I was. But it took a long time. It took about 10 years of slowly making decisions that were a little bit different than what I was told I should, slowly stepping away, slowly analyzing, slowly looking at things objectively before I had the confidence to really walk away.
Wow. What a trailblazer you are in the sense because well, you are. Like your whole life is that you grew up in this church. You've grown up in this environment. This is what you know. This
Yeah.
is literally who you are. And
Yeah.
yet, somewhere and in throughout that, you have gone, you know what? There's something within me that is going, this is no longer in alignment. I am not in alignment with this. And what a battle for
Yeah.
yourself to not only have that internal struggle because it's like, but this is my life, this is who I know, this is what I'm meant to be doing, to then go, well, actually, there's this other side of me that is really questioning what I'm doing and am I really in the right spot because I'm not feeling good about this. And then the other part is you've got to then, if you've made this decision and it's a monumental decision to then go and face your family and to face church members and to speak to your husband and have these conversations to go, you know what? I'm out. Like that is
Yeah.
huge. It's huge.
Yeah. I mean that was honestly the scariest part was after I'd made the decision to leave, it was like I was so 100% sure this is the right decision for me. I was afraid for a long time, even though I was slowly stepping away and I had this slow erosion and I knew there were things that I didn't believe. I couldn't bring myself to say I am not Mormon because I am is like that's an identity. And I wasn't ready to change my identity yet. I was 35 years having this identity. How, if I ripped that out, then literally everything fell apart. And what it took for me was actually moving overseas. So I I chose a career to be a teacher, not because that was really like a big passion of mine, but because that was the most benign job a Mormon mom could have, because it was the same schedule as my kids. And, I had the same breaks as them. I didn't have to put them in daycare. I could still be a stay-at-home mom. And, but it was still a little bit like, oh, she's working. There was still a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Um, but so I made the decision to be a teacher, and then my husband and I found out about international schools. And so we jumped right into the opportunity. And so we moved overseas to Kazakhstan, of all places, where they didn't know what Mormon was. They'd never even heard the word. But what that did for me is it took me out of that Mormon bubble, that Mormon monoculture where I was surrounded by other people who were Mormon. And one thing that the LDS Church does really well is the social structure. Like you always have a friend, you always have a social activity to go to, right? And so it also makes it really hard to step away because you're surrounded by it. But
Yeah.
moving to another country where I was now meeting people from all over the world, all different religions, all different cultures. I was being exposed to these different places. And like, I would go into Hindu temples or Muslim mosques or a Catholic cathedral. And it was just like I would feel this amazing spiritual feeling, and it was confusing for me. But what that did was it opened my eyes and it let me zoom out and have this really objective view. And then that also gave me the courage to say, I am not Mormon. There was one specific policy that the church came out with at this time that I had a whole body visceral reaction to. I don't believe this. And since I had already had this experience of being overseas and being separated from it, I could say, I'm done.
Wow.
And that was really empowering. Like when I made that decision, it was like I say my whole body felt like it opened up into a million stars. Like it just was this amazing feeling of yes. And then all of a sudden it was like, I know what I'm not, but then what am I? What am I? Because I had spent all these years pushing myself down, burying my doubts, learning to distrust myself, that I didn't even know who I was anymore. And like you said, then I had to tell my husband, my family, my extended family were still in the church. And then I had to tell my kids, who at the time were ages 9, 11, and 13. And it's like, I had started their life raising them in this church, that this was the one true way. This was the path to God. We are the most righteous. And now what? I was going to go downstairs and say, ah, you remember all that stuff I taught you? I changed my mind. Like,
Sorry about that, kids. I've just decided
yeah,
I've changed my mind. Just
yeah.
ignore all of that.
Forget everything I told you your entire life, and I don't know what I believe at all. So it, of course, it's not that, that's how I saw it in my head. That's how I
Yeah.
saw it in my head for sure. And so it was a long process of navigating relationships and what kind of a mom am I going to be? And, parenting is a subset of who you are. And so I knew that I had to be really clear on myself and my beliefs before I could really decide what kind, how I was going to make decisions about how to raise my kids.
Yeah. And there's so much, like, even, well, this is the thing. There's so many, I guess, identities in the sense of the roles that we play. And so here you are just going, and especially because your whole life, like you said, there were 35 years of you being encapsulated within this environment to go, okay, I'm walking away. But like you said, you're then questioning, well, who am I? Who
Mm,
am I without this? But then more importantly, well, then who am I as a mum? Who am I as a friend? Who am I as a wife? Who am I? Just who am I? Like, and as much as I think too, like we feel this whole, like you said, it was like all of a sudden your body is just like, oh yeah. But then there's this whole thing of too, then going, oh, what now?
Yeah.
What now?
Yeah. And that was petrifying. That was really petrifying. And when I left, this was in 2015, I didn't know anyone else who had left. Plus, I was on the other side of the world. Um, and so I felt really alone.
Mm.
And I was surrounded by people who didn't even know what the church was. So it was like I was trying to explain what I was leaving and navigating my family and the beliefs that I had, and they were like they didn't get it. So I had to constantly explain myself, and it was really difficult. Um, and I had to learn, like that experience where I felt like I opened up into a million stars, I say. Um, I had to learn to listen to my body. That was number one,
Yeah.
was pay attention to what my body was telling me. So, okay, if I want to know who I am, well, when something's happening and I start to feel maybe constrictive, I start to feel those feelings that I felt as a kid in Sunday school. That's my subconscious mind speaking through my body before my conscious mind has a chance to talk me out of it, telling me there's a belief there that I have that's not really resonating.
Yeah.
And so that's the first sign. That's the first sign. And then you can dive deep into some questioning. Where did this belief come from? Who gave me this belief? Do I really believe this?
Hmm.
And what's a better feeling belief that's going to make me feel expansive and open?
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And that is for everybody. And I think this is definitely a no for my even my own journey is really listening to your body because
Yeah.
our bodies do speak and there are times where they are screaming out at us, and so it really is, and that's something that I've really had to learn, is to learn my body. And I don't think that it's really taught. Like, I think this
No.
is something that is starting to come out more where people are actually talking about this and starting to really go, oh, actually, our bodies do speak to us. And it really is important. And I know that's one of the teachings that I do, like with Louise Hay, is really
Mm.
listening within. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, when for myself, but also with the women that I work with, um, after leaving the church and dedicating your entire life to serving others and feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness and having that belief that a good mom and a good wife serves other people and buries her needs and she sacrifices, those are these beliefs that are given to well, from the church I was raised in, but also I think most women in society today have that
Oh,
people pleasing need, right?
absolutely. Because it
Yeah.
really has been such a patriarchal society, and women
Yes.
are really starting to talk up about that more and go, hang on a
Yes.
second, we have a voice and our voice matters.
Yeah. So for me and the woman I work with, for me at first, it was like, you know, I would go out to a restaurant and look at the menu. And instead of just being like, oh, I want that, I would ask everyone else at the table, well, what are you having? Well, what are you having? Or what are you having? I couldn't even decide what to order at a restaurant, let alone who I wanted to be or who I was. And so I had to start with the little things. And I often tell the story of when I was making Thanksgiving dinner. I'm from the United States, so we celebrate Thanksgiving, right? I was making Thanksgiving dinner, and also there was a lot of pressure in the Mormon household to be like a trad wife. That wasn't a trend back then. That was just what Mormons did. Like, we cooked and we cleaned and we, anyway, we did all the things. So I was making pie and I was making it from scratch because it's better if it's from scratch. And so, you have to make the crust the night before and it's all this work. And I remember being in the kitchen, like cutting up apples, and I'm starting to feel really resentful. And I'm like, all this work into apple pie. I don't even like apple pie. Well, why do I make apple pie? Well, it's my husband's favorite. Well, so I make it every year. Why don't I make my favorite? And then I realized I'm in my 40s and I don't even know what kind of pie I like.
Yeah, wow.
I had just served my husband and my kids and put their needs first. And what do you want for dinner? What do you want to do this weekend? What's best for you, that I didn't even know what kind of pie I liked. So how could I possibly make a decision on, should I choose a different career, or, those bigger life decisions, if I couldn't even figure out what kind of pie I liked because I was out of practice?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about like listening to your body, it has to start with those small things, because when you come out of that and you start realizing you've lost yourself, you don't know how to listen to it. So I say start small, open the fridge and be like, do I want that or that? Which one feels better in my body? You know?
Absolutely, yeah. But it is just starting so small. And I know
Mhm.
sometimes when we share our stories, like you said, like it was over a pie. Like,
Yeah.
but this is where honestly it starts. Like I know people who potentially be like, what? But honestly, it really is like, well, I see. I, oh, what do I, what is my favorite color? Like,
Yeah, honestly,
I
I
don't
didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah,
And it was like shocking to me. And then I was like, you know what? I used to be really clear on who I was and what I
yeah,
liked and what kind of music I liked and what kind of food I liked. But I had spent so many years just making sure everybody else's needs were taken care of, making sure everybody else was happy. I didn't even know. Like, and it had just erased joy from my life without me noticing it.
yeah. Well, because you become so ingrained,
Yeah.
because it's just what you do. And especially with the people pleasing side of things, like that is such a pattern that is learned when we are so little. And so it becomes so ingrained that you do that you're like, oh, this is just what I do. This is what I know. And
Yeah.
it is really hard to start to break away from that, especially when it has been so ingrained within you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so like from that moment, I took a really deep dive into what I call grieving the life unlived.
Mm,
And I started thinking about, okay, I'm in this life, I'm in this kitchen, it's Thanksgiving, I'm making pie that I don't even like. And I've been married 20 plus years and I have three kids. And at this point, my youngest was just about ready to leave the house. And I thought, I'm in a life that was created based on decisions I made as young Mormon Audra. And I
yeah,
got married at 20. I had my first kid at 22. I chose to be a teacher because that was the most benign job a Mormon mom could have. But now I'm in this life, but I've left the church. I'm a totally different person. I've done a lot of work on myself. Um, and I really started grieving. What could it have been like if? What kind of a mom would I have been like if I was older when I had kids? And the bigger question at that time that I was grappling with was, I chose my husband when I was 20 years old. We'd only known each other for 6 months. We were married over 20 plus years. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And do I still choose this person today? Because
Mm,
I can make a choice to change the trajectory of my life from this point forward. So, do I still actively choose this person today? But I was so confused. I didn't, at this point, I hadn't learned how to really like regulate emotions and use emotions to identify patterns. And I needed to calm my nervous system down so that I could make a big decision like that, because I knew I didn't want to make it from a place of frustration or anger. I wanted to make a life-altering decision about my marriage from a place of peace and calm and confidence. But I couldn't get there. It took a lot of work to get to that point. But you know, these are kind of the big questions that a lot of women, when they leave the church, they're like, oh my gosh, not only do I not believe the doctrines of the church, but my whole life that I'm living now was based on an identity that I had that I no longer align with.
Yeah. And it's so huge. And the other thing is too, like, there's such big questions, but I do love how you said that in order to make any of these big decisions, it's important to come from a space where you were feeling calm, where you were feeling at peace, and where you were feeling centered. Because
Yeah.
when you come from that space, then that's where the clarity and that kicks in, and you become so clear. And I always, even now after my journey, for everything that I face, if there is something there where I am feeling, agitated, frustrated, or upset by, I'm like, I'm going to give this space, acknowledge the emotions that come up because they're allowed to be there. I'm feeling these emotions for whatever reason. Question those emotions, sleep on it if I need to, and then get myself centered to come back to these decisions and to those choices. And I think it's so invaluable for everybody to be able to come from those decisions from a place of calmness and peace. Definitely.
Yeah, and I really like how you mentioned, like, sitting with those uncomfortable emotions, because for me, growing up in a high demand religion, anger was a sin
Yeah.
and doubt was a sin. So those types of emotions, I I they were uncomfortable for me, so I would bury them.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to find the learning in the emotion. Okay, I'm feeling anger right now. Where is this coming from? Where am I feeling it in my body? What's the belief I have that's giving me anger? Or maybe grief. Like, grief is a really big one for those who leave the church. Grief over loss of family, loss of community. And and you push the pain down because it's hurtful.
Yeah.
But when you can sit with it and process it and learn from it, eh, you know, it's like it's it I like to describe it like a wave. It'll come as a wave, and then waves always go back into the ocean.
Yeah.
And then it might come again, and then it'll go back into the ocean. But what are you going to learn from it every time it comes, and allow it to come and really feel it? And as you move through that, and then you learn some other strategies of how to move to a better feeling emotion piece by piece, then you slowly get closer to peace and calm and confidence, and you can make decisions from that place. But it's not, like you said, you might have to sleep on it. It might take a long time, but it's okay to sit in those emotions. They're normal and they're natural, and they're actually so healthy, and they tell you so much about who you are.
Absolutely. I'm like, if you need to punch your pillow, go and punch your pillow. If you need to scream it out, like scream it out. Release it from your body because it is important. And especially when we've been, such people pleasers, because you do. You sometimes
Ah,
it's like, oh, I can't be angry. Oh no, I'm not doing conflict. And do you know what I mean? Like it's like, bury it
yeah,
down. So then when it
bury
does
it
come
down.
up, it's like, whoa, geez. And then you have to say to yourself, I'm angry. Who the hell is this saying I'm angry? Like who is angry? I don't do anger. Like no, I don't do angry. Do you know what I mean? And so it's interesting. But we're human. Of course we're allowed to
Yeah.
have these emotions.
Of course. And like for me, when I'm feeling, anger is a very like kinetic energy. It's like, get it out of your body. Don't let it stay in your body. Move your body. Go for a walk. Do jumping jacks. Like, find some ways to move that energy out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, when you mentioned people pleasing, it's like, if you are saying yes to something to
Hmm.
please someone else because that's their expectation of you, you're letting an outside authority tell you what to do and who to be,
Yeah.
then that resentment that you're feeling, sit with it for a minute
Yeah.
and think, okay, I said yes to this. Now I'm feeling resentful for it. So, what's a boundary that I can set? That with kindness, boundaries don't have to be rude,
Oh,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, boundaries are to protect your energy so that you can stay in a better feeling emotion and you're not saying yes and then, making 100 cupcakes for the parent teacher meeting and like, you know,
And
saying, I hope you guys choke on these cupcakes while you're making them.
sometimes too, like I know it for myself, I'll say yes for something and then automatically, like I'll feel it in myself and I'll be like,
Yes.
why did I say yes to that?
Yep. Yep. You feel it in your body and you're like, actually, that's a no. You... Thank you for asking. I will decline.
Absolutely. This is why it's so important. Or you'll be like, you know what? I'll get back to you on that. Because you don't have to say, nah, we're done. No,
Right.
it's just you can actually go, you know what? I'll get back to you on that. And inwardly you're feeling your body, and then you can go, okay, so what's the reason? Like, why am I not
Yep.
wanting to do this? Or, what's the reason that I can tell these people I can't do it?
Yeah.
Because I'm not feeling
There's
good.
exactly, I'm not feeling good. And there's very few situations where you have to make a decision right away. So
Yeah.
I like how you said, like, just pause for a minute before you give your answer. And that's fine. And then go, okay, do I I don't really want to do this. Why am I saying yes? What's the real answer?
Yeah.
And that's going to preserve your energy for you. It's going to take you out of resentment. And then every decision you make is from a higher place. It's not out
Yeah.
of someone else's expectations.
Absolutely. And you're not feeling all this obligation. And again, it's that people pleasing pattern of, I feel obligated. I'm doing this because I feel obligated. And the only person who's going to benefit from that is the person that you're doing it for. Because inwardly, you, I know for me, I don't feel good after I've got said yes to something if it's not
Yeah.
something that's truly in alignment with me. And we're with ourselves 24/7. So why not be in alignment with you?
Yeah. And I think this is where a lot of mom guilt comes from too. With a lot of moms that I work with, they have this definition of what a good mom is that came from them either from society or from their family, or in my case, from a high demand religion that gave me my divine role as a woman. And so I have this definition of what a good mom is that was given to me. And then I feel like I'm not measuring up to this. I'm not good enough. I'm destroying my children.
Yeah.
And I still had that definition of what a good mom is when I left the church. It was just buried deep in my conditioning. It was determining my thoughts and my emotions and my behaviors. And so when I left the church, it was like, I know I'm making the right decision, but now I'm destroying my kids' lives because I'm ripping the rug of uncertainty right out from under them. And so I had all this guilt, but where was that guilt really coming from? It was coming from a definition of who I should be that was someone else's definition and not mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important. And this is where it's so great, you know, that women who have or who are in the situation that you were in have now got somebody like you who is advocating and speaking out and saying, you know what, this is my story, this is my journey. I'm here. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. I'll walk with you. I'll hold your hand because I know exactly what it's like to go through this whole process.
Yeah, exactly. And I see a lot of people when they leave the church, they stay really stuck in the hurt and the pain and the grief and the anger and the resentment, and they're just kind of reliving the trauma over and over and over again. And so, really, what I want women to know is you don't have to stay stuck in that cycle, that you can go to a family event where they're talking about church, or maybe it's held at a church, and you can feel unbothered and you can still feel an internal calm. You can really move to a place where you're so confident in who you are and the decisions you've made that you're not triggered by those things anymore. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of identity work and boundaries and emotional regulation and in order to get to that place. But then once you get to that place, you can also go, okay, now what kind of a mom am I going to be? And you really help your kids move through that process as well.
Well, the other thing is too, I think, I mean, as children get older, they too are going to be experiencing situations that are going to come into their lives. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really good that you've shown your children that you know, if something does not feel right for you, then there are alternatives. There are ways
Yeah.
to explore this. And you're also teaching them how important it is to set healthy boundaries and how to listen to you and how to ask those questions and who that they can, the other part of like really trusting in yourself and knowing yourself is knowing, I guess, who's who in the zoo, in the sense of who you can go and speak with and who you feel comfortable with and who is a safe person. And by doing like what you have done, you are creating this beautiful safe space, this refuge for women like yourself to come into that, but also for your children to be able
Yeah.
to have that opportunity. Well, that they go, well, actually, you know what, mum went through all of this and had these big identity crisis and changes. If mum can do it, then I can do that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And like open up to your kids. I
Yeah.
think oftentimes as moms, we think we're doing really good at hiding our struggles, but they know,
Of
like
course they know. Oh,
yeah, they
they
pick
so
up on
know.
it. And
My my two see straight through me. They can just read me. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm good." And they're like, "Oh, come on. Like we can
yeah,
tell, mom. Like come on. We can tell. Like what's going on?"
exactly.
Yeah.
And when I finally felt comfortable enough to open up to my kids and have the conversation with my kids about it and to admit when I didn't have all the answers, it became a really great way to connect with them on a deeper level where we really started to understand each other. It was a human connection,
Oh,
but between two two people just wanting to understand each other and love each other. And for me, I wasn't raised that way. And so I didn't have an example of what that could look like. I had always thought that being a mom meant, telling him the right way to do and what path to take. But when I was able to step back and release the judgment on myself and then judgment on my kids, and also realize that there's not one right way to do something,
absolutely. Yeah.
that the world is not dichotomous. It's not right and wrong and good and bad.
No.
That it just became really beautiful to see what choices they made that were right for them. And I love that. And, there's 8 billion people on the planet. Why can't there be 8 billion right ways to do life?
Absolutely. I love that. Exactly. Why can't there be 8 billion? Like we don't, it doesn't, and this is what makes like us as humans so unique is
Yeah.
that we're all different. Each and every one of us brings something to the table. Like each and every one of us. So I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
bring that on. I love that. 8 billion people have all these different ways and different perspectives. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And and that was honestly one of the reasons why we wanted to move overseas too. We were teachers living in the United States, not making any money, and we were living in a monoculture. We were living in small town Idaho in a Mormon bubble, and it was like I wanted my kids' world to be as big as it could possibly be. I didn't want to keep them sheltered. I wanted them to be exposed to so many different types of people. And I wanted them to have a really broad world view.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the reasons we decided to move overseas. And then after that, when I stepped away from the church, it was like every every possibility just opened up for me.
Yeah. Well, because you've been so, like you've been in your bubble and
Yeah.
and they were too. And now all of a sudden it's widening that bubble. It's moving out of that and going, well, actually, there is more. There is more for us. And if
Yes.
that's what you want and that's right for you, then I think great. If you're happy staying in your bubble, then stay in your bubble. But it really is as long as you feel right within, then who are we to argue as long as it's in
Yeah.
alignment? Like that's what it has to be, is be in alignment
Yeah.
with you.
Be in alignment, which is easier said than done. And
Oh, absolutely. It really is. Audra, thank you so, so much for being on the Rise Up and Heal show today. Honestly, I just love our conversation. Thank you.
thanks for having me. You have such a great energy, and I just love sharing with you. So
Oh,
thanks.
I love it. Now, for anybody who wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media as Mama Audra. I also have a website, mamaudra.com. And like you mentioned at the beginning, there's a free masterclass you can watch. It's on my website. If you go there, you can find that as well. And I have a program called Reclaimed that's a community of women, and we go through some group coaching and one-on-one coaching, and there's a whole curriculum that we follow to help with all of these things so that you feel confident in your identity and your emotional regulation, and you can make decisions from a place of peace. So the masterclass is the first place to go if you're interested in that Reclaimed program.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I will, to everybody, I will be putting Audra's details in the description with all the links so that you can absolutely contact Audra. Audra, again, thank you to everybody who's listening and watching Rise Up and Heal. Thank you so much for your support. We just really absolutely appreciate you. And again, please take care of you. And I look forward to catching up with everybody soon.
Thank you.